I never thought my life would turn into a medical drama, a twisted reality show where every day felt like a scene from a pandemic movie. I mean, can you imagine living with someone who genuinely has the weakest immune system in the world? And no, I'm not exaggerating for dramatic effect here, although trust me, the drama was very, very real. Was I wrong for the decisions I made, for the extreme lengths I went to just to keep us both sane, or more accurately, to keep her alive and me from losing my mind? Tell me, honestly, if you would have done the same thing, because some days, I still wonder if I was a hero or just a selfish monster. Let me take you back, way back, to when I first met Sarah. It was our freshman year of college, a time of boundless energy, questionable fashion choices, and the blissful ignorance of impending medical doom. Sarah was ethereal. She had this delicate beauty, pale skin that seemed almost translucent, eyes that held a depth of kindness, and a laugh that was soft, almost a whisper. We bonded over late-night study sessions, cheap ramen, and a shared love for obscure indie bands. Our connection felt instantaneous, like two puzzle pieces clicking perfectly into place. I fell hard and fast. Everyone did. She had this magnetic charm, an innocence that drew people in, making them want to protect her. Little did I know, that desire to protect would become the central, all-consuming theme of my life. Our first year together was like any other young couples. Dates to the movies, long walks, clumsy first kisses, and the occasional, inevitable cold. Except for Sarah, a common cold was never just a cold. It was a week-long battle, often escalating into bronchitis, sometimes even pneumonia. We brushed it off at first, attributing it to the stress of college, maybe a slightly weaker constitution. Her parents, whom I met during breaks, were lovely, but also seemed resigned to her frequent illnesses, always fussing, always vigilant. They'd mention her childhood, a series of hospital stays and a general fragility, but never anything specific. It wasn't until our sophomore year, when things took a far more serious turn, that the full, terrifying truth began to unravel. Sarah caught the flu that year. Not the regular flu, but a particularly virulent strain that was going around campus. For most students, it meant a few days of misery, some missed classes, and then back to normal. For Sarah, it meant a fever that wouldn't break, extreme dehydration, and ultimately, a trip to the emergency room. That's when the doctors started asking more questions, running more tests, and looking at us with a grim seriousness that chilled me to the bone. They discovered she had a severe primary immunodeficiency. Essentially, her immune system was like a castle with no walls, no guards, just an open invitation for every invading pathogen. She was missing crucial components, specific antibodies, and certain white blood cells that most people take for granted. Her body simply couldn't mount an effective defense against even the most common infections. The diagnosis hit us like a tidal wave. Suddenly, our carefree college life was replaced by a rigid regimen of medications, weekly immunoglobulin infusions, and a constant, suffocating fear. Doctors explained that even a common cold, a benign sniffle to others, could quickly become life-threatening for Sarah. A bacterial infection could spiral into sepsis in hours. Viral infections, like the flu or measles, which she was now highly susceptible to despite vaccinations, could be catastrophic. Her life became a delicate tightrope walk, and I, her devoted boyfriend, instinctively stepped onto that rope beside her. I took on the role of her primary caretaker, a self-appointed guardian against the invisible armies that constantly threatened her. Our apartment transformed into a sterile zone. Hand sanitizer became our most prized possession, and masks were a permanent fixture in our lives long before the world knew what a pandemic was. Friends had to wash their hands meticulously before entering, and sometimes, if there was even a hint of a sniffle, they were politely, but firmly, turned away. It was isolating, not just for Sarah, but for me too. My social life dwindled as my priorities shifted entirely to her well-being. Dating became a logistical nightmare. Every outing had to be meticulously planned. Are there too many people? Is it flu season? Is anyone sick? A simple trip to the grocery store felt like a military operation. The physical toll on Sarah was immense. She was constantly fatigued, prone to infections, and endured endless medical appointments. But the mental and emotional toll, on both of us, was perhaps even greater. The fear was a constant companion, a heavy cloak that never quite lifted. Every cough, every sneeze, every slight temperature change sent us into a spiral of anxiety. I watched her spirit, once so vibrant, dim under the weight of her condition. She tried to remain positive, she really did, but the constant limitations, the never-ending vigilance began to chip away at her. My frustration grew too. Not at Sarah, never at Sarah, but at the unfairness of it all, at the world that seemed so carelessly full of germs, at the people who didn't understand. I became hypervigilant, almost obsessive. I'd silently judge people for not covering their mouths when they coughed, for shaking hands, for bringing their sick kids to public places. My world shrunk, constrained by the invisible microbial threats that lurked everywhere. Our love, once so effortless, became a testament to endurance, a silent vow to fight against an unseen enemy. We learned to live with a level of caution that most people would find unimaginable. Holidays were spent at home, sometimes just the two of us, sometimes with her parents who understood the precautions. Travel was almost out of the question, given the risks of exposure and access to specialized medical care. Our lives were dictated by her health, by the precarious balance of her immune system. We built a bubble around ourselves, a fortress against the world's germs, and for a long time, it felt like we were winning. We found a rhythm, a new normal, however difficult. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic. If her life before was a tightrope, the pandemic was like that rope being set on fire over a pit of spikes. For everyone else, it was a terrifying, unknown threat. For Sarah, it was an apocalyptic prophecy come true. Her doctors told us, in no uncertain terms, that if she contracted COVID, especially in the early days before vaccines and effective treatments, her chances of survival were astronomically low. Her already compromised respiratory system, her inability to fight off infections, made her the ideal, tragic victim. We had been living in a self-imposed quarantine for years, but now, the entire world was following suit. The difference was, for most people, it was temporary. For Sarah, and by extension for me, it was a death sentence waiting to happen. The fear, which had always been a low hum, roared to life. It consumed every waking moment, every thought, every decision. We locked ourselves down completely. Food was ordered online, delivered to the porch, and then meticulously disinfected before being brought inside. Every package, every mail item, every surface was treated as a potential biohazard. I became an expert in sanitization protocols, far beyond what any government agency was recommending. My hands were raw from constant washing and alcohol gels. My anxiety reached new, unbearable heights. I would wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, just to check if she was breathing, if she had a fever. Our closest friends and family, those who truly understood, were incredibly supportive. They dropped off groceries, ran errands, and checked in constantly. But even with their help, the burden was immense. I was working from home, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but my focus was shattered. Every cough I heard from outside, every news report about rising case numbers, felt like a direct threat. Sarah was understandably terrified. She would often cry, quietly, feeling like a burden, like her very existence was putting me in danger. I'd hold her, trying to reassure her, telling her she wasn't a burden, that I loved her more than anything, that we would get through this. But inside, a part of me was screaming. The pressure was immense, suffocating. I felt like I was carrying the weight of her life, and my own sanity, on my shoulders. One day, I received a call from my sister, Emily. She lived a few states away, and was planning a visit. She usually understood our situation, but this time, her tone was different. She had just started dating someone new, Mark, and she wanted to bring him to meet me and Sarah. I immediately felt a surge of dread. "Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "You know how careful we have to be. We're still in strict lockdown because of Sarah." There was a pause, a slight huff. I know, she said, but Mark is really careful. He's been vaccinated, boosted, everything. And he's working from home, so he's barely around anyone. We'll get tested before we come, I promise." I tried to explain again, more firmly. "Emily, it's not just about COVID for Sarah. Any virus, any bacterial infection, could put her in the hospital. We haven't even had our regular cleaning person in months. We can't risk it. Her voice hardened. So what? I can never visit you. You expect me to just abandon my brother and his girlfriend forever? This is ridiculous. You guys are living in a bubble. Mark thinks it's completely over the top, and honestly, so do I. It's been 2 years. People are living their lives. My blood ran cold. Emily, this isn't about living our lives. This is about Sarah's life. She could die. The conversation devolved into an argument, one that ended with her hanging up on me, furious. The next day, I got a call from my mom. Emily had apparently called her, complaining about my unreasonable demands and how I was isolating myself and Sarah. My mom, usually so understanding, was also starting to show signs of weariness. Honey, she said gently, maybe you both need a break. It sounds like you're both under immense stress. Could you maybe consider letting Emily and Mark come, just for a short visit? They'll be careful. I can even bring them groceries from outside and leave them on the porch, so they don't have to go to a store. I felt a surge of panic. Even my mom, who had witnessed Sarah's struggles firsthand, was starting to question our vigilance. It was like the world was moving on, and we were stuck in an eternal, terrifying loop. I explained, again, the specifics of Sarah's condition, the severity, the very real threat. My mom listened, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. I just worry about you, son. You're losing yourself in all this. And Sarah, maybe she needs to see some family. I tried to explain to Sarah about Emily's call and my mom's gentle pressure. She looked at me with those wide, sad eyes. It's okay, honey, she whispered. Maybe they're right. Maybe we are being too cautious. I miss seeing people. My heart clenched. I knew she missed her family, her friends. She was tired of the isolation, tired of the fear. But I also knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was not the time to lower our guard. Her life literally depended on it. I looked into her eyes, those beautiful, fragile eyes, and I made a decision. A drastic, desperate decision that I knew would alienate my family, but one I felt was absolutely necessary. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have caved to family pressure, trusting in their precautions? Or would you have doubled down, protecting the person you loved, no matter the cost to your relationships? Estud firm. I called Emily back and told her, unequivocally, that she and Mark could not visit. Not now, not until the pandemic was truly over and Sarah's doctors gave us the green light. I tried to be gentle, to explain it wasn't personal, but the words came out strained, edged with desperation. Emily exploded. She accused me of being controlling, of keeping Sarah captive, of using her illness as an excuse to cut everyone out of my life. She said Mark thought I was crazy, that I was mentally ill for my level of paranoia. She even suggested Sarah should leave me, that I was suffocating her. I hung up, my hands trembling with a mixture of rage and sorrow. Then I called my mom. I told her that if Emily and Mark were to visit, I would not allow them into our apartment, and frankly, I would not even meet them outside for a socially distanced chat. I explained in a voice that was barely my own, that I was not willing to gamble with Sarah's life, that if she got sick because of someone else's carelessness, I would never forgive myself or them. I told her I understood their frustration, but they simply couldn't comprehend the terror we lived with every single day. My mom, bless her heart, finally understood the gravity in my voice, the raw fear. She sighed, a deep, weary sound. Okay, son, she said. I hear you. I'll talk to Emily. But please take care of yourself too. The conversation with my family was incredibly difficult. Emily didn't speak to me for months. My mom mediated, trying to explain my perspective, but Emily remained convinced I was being unreasonable, a germaphobe who had taken things too far. Mark, her new boyfriend, echoed her sentiments, calling me extreme and overprotective. My relationship with my sister, once so close, fractured under the immense pressure. It hurt deeply. I missed her, but I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I had made the right choice. Sarah was my priority. Her life, her breath, her fragile existence trumped everything else. The pandemic continued to rage, and we continued our lockdown. It was isolating, yes, but we found strength in each other. We learned new hobbies, cooked elaborate meals, watched countless movies. Sarah, despite her underlying terror, found a quiet resilience. She started painting again, a passion she had abandoned years ago due to fatigue. Her art became a beautiful, vivid expression of her inner world, a world free from germs and fear. I supported her, cheered her on, and found immense joy in seeing her rediscover a piece of herself. Then, about a year after the intense family argument, something shifted. Vaccines became widely available. Treatments improved. The world slowly, tentatively began to open up. Sarah's doctors, after careful consideration and a series of new protocols, cautiously gave us the green light to gradually ease some of our restrictions. We still had to be incredibly careful, but the immediate, apocalyptic threat had receded slightly. It was a slow, deliberate process. Our first outing was to a deserted park, wearing masks, keeping our distance from the few other people there. Sarah's face, usually so pale, had a flush of joy. We held hands, feeling the sun on our skin, smelling the fresh air, like it was the first time in years. It was a victory, small but significant. Over time, we slowly started to reconnect with the world, always with utmost caution. We could visit close family who were vaccinated and understood our strict rules. Emily, after months of silence, finally reached out. She had broken up with Mark, who, it turned out, was not as understanding or as careful as she had initially believed. He had even tried to pressure her into visiting us without telling me, believing he knew better. Emily, seeing the light, realized how truly misguided she had been. She apologized, tearfully, for her accusations and her lack of understanding. We hugged, a long emotional embrace, and slowly, painstakingly, began to mend the rift between us. Sarah is still fragile. She still has the weakest immune system in the world, and her life will always be a careful balancing act. We still adhere to many precautions, always prioritizing her health above all else. But we are no longer imprisoned by fear. We have learned to live with the vulnerability, not in spite of it. Our love, forged in the crucible of fear and isolation, is stronger than ever. We faced down an invisible enemy, together, and came out on the other side scarred but unbroken. So that's my story. It's a story of love, of fear, of impossible choices, and of the unwavering commitment to protect the person you cherish most. It taught me that sometimes, protecting someone means making difficult decisions that others might not understand. It taught me the immense power of resilience, both Sarah's and my own. And it taught me that family, even when they disagree, can eventually come around, especially when faced with the raw truth of vulnerability. Like this video if you were on my side, if you understand the lengths I went to for Sarah. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of extraordinary circumstances, and the very human emotions they ignite. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.